What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Apex, the podcast. We are fresh off of regionals. The final is in the books. We have our top 11 teams in NA that are going to be making it over into London, and we have all the storylines that come with it, and we're going to break it all down for you. But before we do that, let's check in with the fellas. Enoch, how are you doing?
I'm tired, but I'm doing well. I'll save that for the heart to heart. But yeah, I got done with I did a 24-hour, or I did like a 26.5-hour stream leading up into the new season, because I was like, well, everybody's going to be on for the new season, but nobody's going to be on leading up to it. And so I was like, let me do that thing that nobody else wants to do. And then it was a nice stream. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Learned a lot. It was an experience. I hadn't done a staying up for that long type vibe in quite some time. And I am super, super funny. I'm way funnier than I regularly, I think I'm pretty funny, but I am way funnier when I'm like 26 hours deep on stream. I unlocked a new different level.
I also think everybody,
everything's been going well. Nothing to complain about.
You like everything becomes also funny to you as well, E. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like that you become funnier
into it, but no,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that might have played a little bit into it, but a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, no, it's that slap happy phase. I love that. Finn, how are you doing?
I'm good. E, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just thought
but
that is hilarious, because I think I think everybody listening has been in that state of like, dang, everything is so funny right now, or dang, I feel like I am hilarious, and maybe that's like a mixture of both. And I love to hear that. I'm glad to see that, like, because I tuned in for a little bit before I went to bed. Watching you do the Pathfinder thing, it was nice. It was nice.
I
to
don't
see
like Pathfinder as much as I thought I did.
Is it the hitbox or what?
Bro, everybody is. I don't know if I just ran into like the next up generation of like esports stars yesterday or like earlier today, but man, I was just everybody like plats, diamonds on that hitbox. Like it's just. I don't know. Everybody was like the best player ever. But even it happened when I was on Wraith. I got just absolutely I had a plat 2 insta armor swap in my face. I'm pretty sure it was a macro for like an insta armor swap or something, and just one clip the shit. I was like, huh?
You said
like
what?
It was like I was like, who? And yeah, but it was a good time. It didn't go quite as well as I would have liked. But I had a genuinely fun time, and I feel like I made the most of the situation. And yeah, I'm just gonna kind of try to like keep that energy and take that to the other areas. And with the new Apex change, there's a new like whole 1v1 like scenario deal.
Yeah, the arena.
And so I might as well. I'm going to start doing an evening 1v1, because I used to do like 1v1 days, and I used to like advertise it on TikTok all the time, and those would be super dope. And so now we have the straight up 1v1 thing. I'm just gonna do like weekly 1v1 things Sunday evening, where I'll literally just chow anybody who wants to pull it. Like it'll be like a very minimal amount of channel points, and then just wax the community in 1v1s Sunday evenings, because then that'll open me up for like I could consistently go like almost every Sunday on a morning hike, and then just shit on kids in 1v1s. And it could be like a fire little community event, and then as well as I get to go hiking more. And so there's a lot of things on the up and up, and like the weather's like I was going through a valley, and now I am ascending a mountain of excellence, and we're just gonna keep on going that way.
Beautiful.
So yeah, my week was good. Nothing special. I'm trying to think. I mean, it was nice because this was the first full patch that I got to playtest all the way through. So I think in that regard, it's like a nice pat on the back to like see a lot of your work. Not saying that I did any of the work, like, I didn't do the code and any of that, but like actually playtesting and giving my feedback and seeing some changes and seeing just like my team and like just has grown, and it's really cool to see as like like all my coworkers doing super well. And I don't know. It's very cool. I will say it is hard to like see a ton of criticism on Twitter though, for sure. And especially whenever a lot of them are just like your homies and they're just like shitting on the game.
Wait, what? Negativity on Twitter?
Negativity on Twitter? Yeah, I
I've
know.
never seen that.
Yeah, well, it never happens ever. So
I'm sorry, dude. I've never. I didn't know that happened.
No, you're
That's
good.
crazy.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's never. I've never seen it happen. My bad.
On the Bluebird? No
yeah,
way.
No, yeah. Anyway, but besides that, yeah, I've actually had a pretty fantastic week. Update on Georgia. She's been awesome. I'm gonna save it for the heart to heart.
Please,
yeah,
I know what you're gonna talk about.
Okay,
Save
but
it.
wait, how was your week?
It was good. I watched 2 full seasons of The Sopranos in like, I don't know, 2 nights. Yeah, that's a weekend, right? 2 nights. So my brain's kind of in a weird mush where I'm consistently trying to not bust out my New Jersey accent, and I'm trying to look at the world in a much. When you watch 2 full seasons of The Sopranos, you see the world in a very dark light, and I'm trying to get out of that. So all jokes, but yeah, The Sopranos really puts like a damper when you walk outside your house. You're like, damn, something bad's probably happening right now. So I'm trying to get out of that right now. I need to limit myself to 1 episode a week, so it doesn't dampen my mood. But it's a great show. I suggest everybody watch it. I've heard it's one of the greatest shows of all time, and I'm going to be honest with you. So it's just like Italian mobsters, but it's very It was like late 90s, early 2000s, and it's on par. A lot of people put it on par with like Breaking Bad and other different. It's very similar to Breaking Bad. I'll say that. Very similar to Breaking Bad. HBO Max, 6 seasons, but basically 7 seasons because the 6th season has like 2 parts to it. Very good show, but it's basically a mobster. He runs his thing, but he also goes to therapy, which is very like you don't picture mobsters going to therapy. And it has a lot of interesting dynamics to it. So definitely an interesting show. And yeah, that's all. What's I did this weekend.
What's your best takeaway from it?
My best takeaway,
because I'll be honest, like I watched Peaky Blinders. Right, like it sounds like it's a similar type show.
Yeah,
it's actually like it's one of the few shows I've probably watched that and like a show called Blacklist. Like there's the only TV shows I've watched in probably like the last 4 years, and I'm rewatching Peaky Blinders again because it's just that boy Thomas Shelby is just a like he obviously he's a bad person, does bad things, but that dude is like a badass and just like an example of like a strong like
great
man
leader
who just gets shit done, and yeah, just a leader and just like a baller, and and so it's like, is that that's similar?
Yeah,
vibe?
That's Tony Soprano. You just described Tony. Yeah, Tony Soprano's. He's basically the
Sopranos
Thomas Shelby.
were the original.
So maybe instead of maybe I need to give that a go instead of.
I'll say it's not. He's not as hardcore as the show. Like Peaky Blinders is a lot more hardcore. Like this is like 2000s New Jersey. Like yeah, he kills people and stuff, but it's not like the badass shit and whatever. But it still is a great show. I've been just watching. That was my whole weekend, dude. I didn't do anything else. I just kind of sat down and I just watched that show. I did nothing this weekend, and it felt great. And ALGS. Well, I did watch that, but I also had The Sopranos on while I was watching the ALGS. I had them both going, and then I was only watching The Lanimals, which we will get to.
All right, rip, bro.
And yeah, I had them both going.
So yeah, Finners are only like super unbiased.
Yeah,
Apex Legends
because you had EA
this weekend. I only watched one team too.
Yes. So without further ado, then, ladies and gentlemen, we should just get right into it. We should just move.
Great intro, great segue.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. I'm going to start with the final and just kind of go through some of the storylines here. It really doesn't matter because at the end of this, we have an overall standings with the final 11 teams. But if we want to go into the regional real quick, DarkZero was the team that won the regional. They won with 82 points. They were first overall. Xset right behind them. NRG, we said it last week. We said they were going to make it in. They made it in. Team E8 was sitting at fourth, and FaZe was in fifth. I would go through all the wins like I normally do, but it has more matches than a typical game day, so I'm going to avoid that. But nonetheless, those are the final results. DarkZero with the win. Some notable teams down below. We had the Meat Lovers at 11th. They needed a big day. Luminosity. Will they sneak in? Will they not? You're about to find out. They were 10th. Lanimals at 9th. Optic Gaming down at 13th. 100 Thieves down at 15th. Furia all the way down at 17th. And Glitch Energy, very, very close to having a disaster on their hands, being in the top 10 and falling out. They finished in 19th on the final. But let's get into the overall standings here. Here are your NA representatives going to London. Starting off, Team Xset. I mean, it was inevitable. They were number one overall. Xset wins the NA side of the pool. DarkZero was second. Optic Gaming third. Furia fourth. FaZe, TSM, NRG. And then it rounds out with Glitch Energy, 100 Thieves, Complexity. Our boy Cody sneaks in there. And Luminosity Gaming. First storyline I got to point out here. Somebody on this show said that Luminosity Gaming was going to make it in. And all of his friends made fun of him. They all said, what are you doing? And then he decided to go back on his pick and be like, no, never mind. Luminosity's not going to get in. And then we said, no, stick with your pick. It's your pick. And then he was like, well, okay, I'm going back to it. And then I said, but when you go back to your pick, it won't matter. It won't count. You can't say that
it was
you were
only because
correct.
we told you to.
Because it was only because we told you to. And that person is Finn. What are your thoughts on Luminosity making it in?
No comment. I have absolutely no comment. I'm actually pissed. Somebody tweeted at me. Shout out you who tweeted at me. That was like, dude, they bullied you so hard into like not making the correct pick, even though you were right. And I'm like, dang. You're so right, bro.
Oh my god, dude, you had it. All you had to do was stick with it, and now you're in pick purgatory. Don't let us. Okay, here's a lesson for you. Don't let us do this to you when it comes to land, because we're gonna try. We're gonna mess with 100%. You. We're gonna mess with you, and you got to just stick to your guns. But I will say this: if you end up being
NRG wrong, though, I got NRG wrong though.
That's true.
Again.
You just have beef with NRG.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna have to start a why does Finn hate NRG segment.
Just make an own Twitter account.
If we have Gil back on, or if we get Nathan or Sweet on, they're gonna. You guys, the first thing you guys are gonna say is, "Hey, so this guy's your biggest hater. How do you feel?"
We actually got the president of the NRG hater club.
But getting more into Luminosity here, Finn, obviously Luminosity, they're able to sneak in there. From where they started a few weeks ago, this looked impossible. And somehow they were able to sneak in there with their final 4 days, 12, 16, 10, and 10 points, just barely sneaking in by 2 points. Speak to Luminosity a little bit and how they were able to finally manage to finagle their way into this.
Yeah, well, realistically, Wyatt, it's because Meat Lovers and Wildcard Gaming and Lanimals didn't pop off. Like, that's what it comes down to, is like that they just so happened to do good enough out of the 6 teams that were on the bubble. And they were the last team in, but you know what? They made it in, and they just did just enough. That being said, this is a disappointing split for them, I think you could say. But they were able. They had a few good games. I will say this, and it's funny because I have one of my buddies at work is the biggest Hugares fan in the whole entire world, and so I gotta give him a shout out. But LG going into land could be a sneaky black, a black horse. It's a dark horse. It's dark horse, not black horse. A dark horse pick going into land because they have been kind of mediocre throughout the split, but something to keep your eye on as they do have pop off potential. If you remember at lane, I think they hold the lane record with 21 kills and a win on lane. So LG has pop off potential, but if we're speaking specifically to the regionals, they did just enough, mainly because the teams behind them that were behind them did not do good enough to even qualify. So in a way, they got lucky, but in a way, they did just enough. But still, a disappointing split, I think you could say. One one
100%.
one thing that I want y'all to talk about is the land buff. Excuse me, the land buff. The Apex Legends podcast buff that we gave to Cody and Complexity.
Oh yeah, I mean it was. I knew it was going to happen. We knew they were going to get in. We knew they were going to get in, and they get a 12-point day. It wasn't like the most beautiful day they've ever had. They definitely probably think they could have done a little bit better if you'd asked them, and they probably would have wanted it to be a little bit more comfortable. But they got the win in round 7, and that basically put it away. And I think the other teams on the outside looking in kind of knew. They were like, "Shit, that's tough. That's definitely tough." So they did enough to get in, and like we said, you could go back to what you were saying about Luminosity. Yes, they didn't have a great split, but all it takes is to just get in there, and then anything can happen. They got 21 kills in a game and won it. There's possibilities all over the place for Luminosity. Same thing can be said for Complexity. And now Cody's been there last time, like we said, filling. Now he's actually has some experience. I would be looking out for Complexity. I'd be very weary on Complexity. Keep an eye on them.
I feel like we got to talk about it. Lanimals not making it.
Okay, this is gonna be the tough
Wyatt.
part. This is gonna be the tough part of this podcast because there are 2 members of this show that had teams on the outside looking in who had pretty solid days. Both teams had solid days, but they just it wasn't enough to make it. And Lanimals was one of those teams. And it's so hard because I think there's one game you can point to, and it was just a big mistake that could lead to this team possibly not staying together, which probably maybe would have already been a possibility. Who knows with how volatile the gaming scene is. But it was round 3, 20th place, 0 kills, and it was off of, I don't even want to say, if you watch the VOD and you listen to the argument, it's hard to pinpoint exactly who was in the wrong. But essentially, Alberlelli went to get information. Lou said he wanted him to get information, but Lou also said he didn't want him to get information in that spot. And Alberlelli decides to try to get information, and he gets absolutely fried by TSM. They chase. Naughty and Lou are running for their lives, trying to get to Overlook. Naughty pretty much knew he was going to die, and he was just like, I'll just try to do my best to like body block for you or try to distract from them going towards you, which he tried to do. And then all it was left to was Lou. And the best you could have hoped for was for him to get away and just rat to maybe like best case scenario, maybe you get 11th. But you know how TSM is. You know how that was going to go. And TSM finds him, and it was it. And you look at how many points they missed land by, it was 3 points. And getting that 20th there was absolutely catastrophic. They had some good games. They had a 3rd place with 9 kills, and then the final game of the day, they had a 4th place with 5 kills. And the last game was basically kind of a summation of their entire season. It was 2 of them dead and Naughty trying to just clutch up the best that he could. And not to say that they were dead for reasons that Naughty didn't also contribute to, but he was just doing the best that he could to survive. And who knows, maybe one more team goes down and we're looking at Lanimals going. But it was frustrating, man. It was tough to see. I wouldn't say it's frustrating. It's more heartbreaking than frustrating because I do feel like this team was good enough to go. But when you break it down to the top 10, top 11, it's the teams who are in there didn't make that crucial mistake, and unfortunately we did. And I say we because I felt like I was a part of this team. I've been riding with them for basically since the
Why
beginning.
it's saying we?
Yeah, we. I'm saying we. I was part of this, and it was heartbreaking, man. Like that one hurt, and I hope they run it back. I feel like they were good enough to do it. There's just a few key things they need to fix, and yeah, it sucks. It definitely sucks. Moving on into the other team here, we got Team EA.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to say one thing. Can I say one thing, Wyatt?
Yeah.
Okay, about Lanimals. I'm watching Lou play right now, and he is playing on controller. So something to look out for in the off season.
Yeah.
That is all.
Definitely. Moving away from Lanimals, we had E, who had his team also in there. They had a fantastic day. They had a great day. Unfortunately, some of the days in the past allowed it to where they weren't going to be able to get in unless they win. I'm pretty sure was the situation. But
yeah, it was win only.
Fuck if they weren't close, man. They were so close. E, I think you're muted right now. Are you muted?
Yeah, I was muted. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
Go ahead and kind of go through your situation. I'm sure it was heartbreaking as well, but you guys had a great day.
Yeah, I mean, we went into it. We had good attitude going into it. We knew we had to win. We knew we had everything that it took to be able to make that happen, and we showed up on Sunday with the way that we should have showed up all season, which is definitely not the way that we showed up all season, but is something that is a really big learning moment for us, because like we showed up with a completely different energy than we had in the past weeks. And so shout out to the boys for being able to find that within themselves to get them to the point where they're able to do that. And while it wasn't the first place we needed in order for us to qualify for LAN, it was definitely a really great note to end our season on, and hopefully allow us to take that as a momentum builder going into the LCQ, because we do still have a chance to make champs. We just have to be one of those two teams in the LCQ, and EA's done it before. Obviously not the same team, but EA has gone to LAN off of a last chance qualifier before. No reason that we can't do it again. And yeah, it really they showed up and they played the way that I expected and believed and know that they should be playing at. And they just showed themselves, as well as everybody else, how good of a team they really are and have the potential to be. And this team is far from being in its best form. Yeah, not the overall, like the absolute result we wanted, but it was a really great way to end the season out on, even though we didn't win. But yeah. We got to match. I think we were the fourth team to match point, and we weren't able to bring it home. The comp that we run is a very like it can be good for like winning, but there are just certain zones that our comp is like borderline impossible to win from, and we ended up getting zones where, in our opinion, our comp was just borderline impossible to win from, and then DZ was put in a situation where they were able to bring it home. But it was a great day. Learned a lot, and it definitely I'm really, really excited to see what this team will do when they get the opportunity to play next.
You guys got potential, man. I'll say it. That if anything, that regionals showed that y'all's team has a ton of potential.
No, we definitely. We have everything it takes to be top 5 team in A. We just have to show up in order to do that, and the boys found out how to show up, and now we can. We've gone from, because we started out the season really good. They got third, and then everything kind of fell apart, and then they didn't bounce back and rebound from that until now. And now that we have, and now that we know what we need to do, I would be very, very, very optimistic. I mean, clearly I am, but if you're somebody who's looking for like an underdog story for this next set of games, EA is definitely a team to have your eye on for sure.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, So those are some of the sad stories. Those are some of the teams that we've been riding with since day one, and unfortunately didn't get in. Let's get back into some of the teams that did do well here. And I think we have to talk about NRG because we talked a lot about them last week and how they've kind of had a very basic split. Going into regionals, man, they were locked. They were doing really, really well. They look like a completely different team. Finn, talk a little bit about NRG and what you saw from them in this regional.
Well, it's about dang time that they got some micro calls going correctly. I mean, my gosh, they couldn't win a fight for a lot of their split, and we discussed this. And I did say, and we discussed like, okay, what happens if NRG doesn't qual, right? And I think one of the biggest things I was talking about was that a lot of times people were just getting caught out in fights, and I was saying at the time, because at the time it was Guild, but this team was locked and loaded and ready to go. I think Sweet was on put on a phenomenal IGL performance. His macros are on point. I don't think I've ever said like Sweet doesn't have good macro. I think sometimes the micro, and that's just part of it, part of part of Apex Legends at a competitive level is having good micro specifics in fights, and they did extremely well. They pulled it off extremely well. They won a lot of fights. They had a lot of great rotations. This was the performance that we were expecting to see from NRG, especially coming back from lane, getting second place, and then they come into split 2, and then they just don't perform well. Been hearing through the rumor mill that Sweet hasn't been playing a ton of Apex, and instead he was been playing a lot of Rust. Don't know that to be true. Don't know, but I will say that I am happily surprised. I know I'm the biggest hater, I guess, of NRG, so I'm happily surprised to see NRG make it to LAN. They are 100% a contender to do well at LAN, and hopefully this time I don't make the same mistake and say that they're not going to make it very far. So this is me telling future me to not bet against NRG. Wow, that rhymed. So
yeah, and I think that there's a few other teams we can talk about here. Obviously, TSM is a big one. Everybody has their opinions on TSM. They were able to get in here. They had a solid day. I wouldn't say their split was necessarily terrible. It was just not up to the standards we are used to seeing from TSM, which is funny because they still ended up qualifying 6th. So TSM, they looked a lot better. Overall, what are your feelings on TSM after this last performance?
They did okay. I wouldn't say it is up to standard par of what we were thinking for TSM, but it wasn't bad. I mean, they didn't really have. They had 2 games where they got second place, and then those were high killed games, and so they kind of rode the momentum off of those. They knew that they were already safe and that they were pretty much safe. I guess it technically wasn't mathematically impossible for them to miss, but they were in a really good spot going in as long as they didn't flop, which we can get into GE that did flop, but they still made it in somehow. I don't really know the math of that, but we talked about that at the beginning of the show a little bit. But TSM, had a decent performance, a little bit quiet performance, I would say. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy that they're going to LAN. We weren't thinking that after day 7, we weren't thinking TSM's making it to LAN. So here we are, having a lot of massive names, a lot of big tier 1 esports orgs qualifying for LAN, and I mean this is good this is good and healthy for the Apex scene. So
100%. Listen to some of these names: DarkZero, Optic Gaming, Furia, FaZe, TSM, NRG, 100 Thieves, Complexity, Luminosity. Come on.
Those are some large names.
What more could you ask for? I mean, that's beautiful stuff right there. Can I throw a stat at you real quick?
I would love to hear the stat.
Okay, this is phase or yeah, team phase. This is their placements through every day. Okay. Day 1, third. Day 2, second. They didn't play day 3. They didn't sorry. Day 4, fourth. Day 5, their only really bad day, 18th. Day 6, fifth. Day 8, 11th, and then the final, they went ahead and got fifth. They've really only had 2 placements outside of the top 10, and all of those were like high placements. FaZe, for as much as we talked about them in the beginning of the season, we have barely brought them up at all. Midway, I would say midway through to the end, we've barely said anything about FaZe because we were mostly talking about a lot of drama, a lot of teams not doing well that should have been doing well. FaZe has been consistently good. And we, the people who always talk about how you shouldn't disrespect Phony, have been indirectly disrespecting the team because we just haven't been talking about him. FaZe is consistently good. They have another great day here. They got 2 wins. They had a 3-kill win and an 8-kill win, not to mention their third place. They could have won this whole thing. They were third in the final game. This is one of those teams that we need to be keeping a close eye on going into this final and going into LAN because they have just been consistently good. They really remind me of Xset from last season, where Xset was there the whole time, and they probably could have done better and won at LAN, but they're always just there. And FaZe, this roster with Snipe Down has just it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you would have thought that it was just like it was done. But Snipe Down, Frex, and Phony, man, they are balling out. They're playing great, and they're playing under a great organization that gets a lot more eyeballs on the Apex scene. I'll tell you that much.
I wanted to say one thing. These are my favorites going into it. I know we're having PvP on, and I know that they consistently win. I will say this. Let's talk about DZ real quick. Once again, this team knows how to win match point format. I don't know what it is with DarkZero and Zero specifically being the IGL and like putting his team in like when there's match point format on the line, they just win. I don't know, but they do. They do it every single time. So I'm going to give them the flowers.
I mean, you'd have to consider him the best match point IGL.
Yeah.
No contest.
No
No
contest. Wholeheartedly.
Because 100% it's different than just regular Apex, right? Because I think that you like Nocturnal by far in terms of like overall playing at a high level, he's like excelling. But in terms of like when it comes down to like match point, when games play out different, everything's different. You got to walk away with the W. Nobody does it like that man Zero.
Well, I think, and we can get into it. Xset got onto match point format or match point in their third game.
Games.
Yeah, in 3 games, which is insane, right? Like they had 61 points at one point, and you guys were in second. EA was in second with 27 or 28.
Yeah, we had like 28 points when they were already like 60.
Yeah,
that was insane.
That's ridiculous.
We were in second place.
Yeah, that is ridiculous, bro. But I would say like. Then obviously Xset became a target to make sure that they didn't win. I don't know when DZ. I think did DZ get into match point format on their 5th game, so that was kind of later on. So I think maybe I've noticed that DZ usually gets on match point format later on into the format. And so do you think that maybe that might be the reason why Zero is super good at that? Is like he's playing low level, like he's kind of taking it more. Like even kill throughout, and then I don't know. That's just my thought. A potential synopsis of how
they like sneak in.
Yeah, like how DZ like they are not the first team to get to match point format, but they'll be like the 4th or 5th, and so then they're not like the hard focused every single time, and then they just like win. I don't know.
That could be a strat that they don't want to hit it too fast because you definitely do. There's a certain level of attention that you command from the lobby when you realize that you're close. But yeah, it really does seem like they do wait until like it's like 3rd or like 4th team, maybe like 5th or 6th team to be getting on that match point, and then they just kind of like sneak in. I just think when it comes down to like you need to win a game, nobody is better at getting a team in that spot than Zero. I don't know what it is about like what he's doing, how he's IGLing, but that man finds a way. When he needs a win, he finds it. And like obviously he plays with incredibly talented players, but it's different. Like you don't just win 2 lands and then a dominant performance in regionals like this and not like, it's just, there's something to it.
And it's not to, and you guys are going to hear it in the interview coming up here, but there's a reason. The only thing you could ever point to DarkZero and be like, well, they didn't do that great split 1. You're about to find out why. There's a lot of like factors outside of it that kind of led to that. I would not go into the same attitude with that in split 2 because there was some other circumstances that were causing that. I'll let PVPX talk about those. But yeah, DarkZero is definitely a heavy contender going into this. I picked them, I think, last year or last split, not last year. Picked them last split. I think I might pick them again. I'm gonna be honest. Like I think I might pick them again, and we'll save our picks for another episode. But they're definitely going to be a heavy contender moving into this. Other teams we didn't really mention too much. Optic Gaming, they've kind of been fluttering around the whole time. They've always kind of been there. Very solid squad. They're doing great so far. But they didn't perform the greatest in the regional. But that's not to take away anything else from the rest of the team because they played pretty solid throughout the entire rest of the way. Fury is another one of those. They started a little slower and then they came on strong. Didn't have the best day either, but they're still sitting there in 4th. And the only team that you can kind of look at here and be like, I don't know, I would have to say is probably Glitch Energy. That's probably the only one that you look at and say they started strong, but they had some terrible days throughout this. And it's just, they're going to be that one team where if they're having a great day, they could really shake some things up. If they're not playing well, you'll know pretty instantly, and they might not make it to Sunday.
Dude, I think Wyatt, you nailed that on the freaking head, bro. Like, I wholeheartedly agree. I also think 100 Thieves is also in that boat, but they're a little bit more storied and a little bit more experienced on land. So I'm not as worried about them on land as I am compared to GE. But man, I think you actually nailed that so hard, Wyatt. That's a great call.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, boys. Well, we have so much to break down in the future, and I can't wait for when we get to finally make some picks. And we're gonna have some awesome guests for you guys when we get ready to do the final episode before LAN. It's gonna be awesome. But we have some time before LAN, and why not fill up that time with a great interview from DarkZero PVPX, the coach of DarkZero, the man who makes it all happen. We really appreciate his time, him hopping on. Let's hit a quick ad, and on the other side, we'll get into PVPX. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with the man himself, PVPX from DarkZero. Currently, actually, it's locked in now. The second place team in the second split of ALGS. They were dominant. They had a great final day. I believe they won the final day. They did. DarkZero is on the up and up. They are on the rise. They're already champions. PvP, why are they so good? Like, what's going on? What makes this team so good? And with you behind the seats, kind of watching over everything, you have the best seat in the house. What makes this team go? Why are they so talented?
If I had to pick 2 words, I'd say addiction and passion. It's honestly like across the board. Zero like eats, sleeps, breathes Apex, and I talked about it a little bit on this previous Sunday on the Apex interview after the tournament. He will be up at like 5 o'clock in the morning doing Apex out scrims. He'll sleep like 2 hours and then awake ready for U scrims, sleep 3 hours, awake ready for NA scrims, and then he'll rank after that. And it's just like he'll in between all that he'll do a VOD review. Like I've never met someone more passionate in the Apex scene, and it's crazy because a lot of people don't realize this because he doesn't really stream or use his socials very much. So people don't really know like how much he truly cares to win. Like that's what he's here for. And then Jen's just a demon, right? So we'll get into the rest, I guess.
Yeah, you just mentioned that Jen's a demon. We were talking right before we started recording that Jin was recently doing an M&K challenge, and he's pretty dang good on M&K. Just as he beams just as hard as he does on roller, which is crazy because there's not a whole lot of. I think that there's been a lot more M&K that go to controller than I think there's been roller that goes to M&K, and I think he's kind of that one shining star that roller players can point to be like, yeah, well, we have M&K representation, and we'll just choose Jim Burton if we have to challenge.
He was when I first joined DZ, he was harassing me about letting him play a pro league split on MNK, and I was like, Jen, you are trying to get me fired right now. Like I should have told him, I was like, you could be a top 100 pred player on MNK. I'm still not letting you do that because if we do bad, I'm losing my job. That ain't happening. Like I'm not putting Jen Burton on MNK right now.
And you speak
At least
about
not
those,
until Gibby comes back.
Yeah.
and you speak a little bit about the two people we bring up, Zero and Jen. I mean, those guys have been together through it all. There's been a lot of like roster changes, lots of roster movement through everything. But it seems like whoever they fill in, whoever they put in as their third, it doesn't really matter. This team just gels really well. Is there anything that you've seen between the two of them that just shows like a different kind of bond that makes it to where they play so good and are so great over the last few years?
It's like they both have insane passion to win, and that causes them to butt heads sometimes. But it's like a good thing that it happens because they push each other even more to succeed, and they don't let it bring themselves down. Like they don't perform worse if they like yell at each other at some moment, whatever. Like they have that Australian, culture of, how that can be, right? And they're very passionate with their words sometimes, and it's interesting because like sometimes I do need to step in and be like, listen, boys, it's okay. Chill out just a little bit. I understand, and I'll calm things down a little bit. But it's honestly, I think that's like the core of the roster. Obviously, they've been teammates for so long. Them pushing each other back and forth is like one of the biggest things, I think, in my opinion.
You mentioned those two have like a different dynamic, and then sometimes you feel like you have to step in. What would you say is the biggest difference between coaching the C9 roster and to now coaching into the DarkZero roster? Because, I mean, for those that don't know, PvP was recently a coach for C9 for a good bit of time. I think close to 2 years or right around there. Maybe you could specify, but yeah,
about a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah. And I mean, realistically, you went through a lot of iterations on that roster too when it comes to team, movement and stuff. So I would love to hear maybe the dynamic between how different things were maybe on C9 or some experience that you had on C9 that like better fit you for this moment whenever you were kind of going through this split or the middle of the split, I guess, technically.
It's really interesting. Like it's honestly so insanely similar. Like the core of the C9 roster was Naughty and Zach. We made a couple different roster changes. Naughty was the crazy controller player that everyone knows about, and Zach was the passionate IGL. Then he was very aggressive. He was known to be very aggressive. And before I joined DZ, I really didn't know too much about Zero. Like I knew a lot about Jen, but then I realized I was like, damn, Zero is like very similar to Zach. Like he's really, really aggressive. And I never knew how mechanically gifted he really was. Cause like I said before, he didn't really stream a lot. I didn't really watch him a lot in Apex South. Obviously he won LAN, but like, it's not like much to go off of, right? Until I really started watching him. And I was just like, he is insanely aggressive, insanely, loud and passionate. And it was, I expected it to be different. I even talked about this when I did like interviews before I joined DZ. I was like, I'm going from an edge aggressive team to more of a zone team. But then when I got into the roster, I was like, yeah, we're a zone team, but our play style is like we're an edge team. Like we'll be like blue, white armor, and they're down to 3v3 people with full stacked on edge, and they're gonna wipe them too. Like it's crazy.
So one thing we got into is that you do have experience coaching what would be a more typical NA roster to now coaching DZ, which is a more Australian roster. And how big of a cultural difference have you seen between the team dynamics on that side of things?
I think NA has that like. So when DZ first came, I think they were a bit more. I think there were less risk takers. I think I really pushed them over that edge to take a lot more risks. NA kind of has that like brainless mentality of just push and fight type deal. And DZ had the skill to do that. But I think before I joined, they definitely played a lot more reserved, and I was able to push them over that edge and capitalize off on that aggressiveness that they really had and utilize that to its fullest. Um, so I don't know. I don't know too much about like how the Australian scene plays, but typically that scene is actually a lot more passive as a whole. I remember watching a lot of scrims before, and they were like majority Watson. You know, a lot of teams in endgame, a lot of teams respecting each other. NA, no one respects anyone. No one cares who they're gonna fight for the most part. And I think that's part of like what I've instilled in this DZ roster, and it's worked really well. We're really finding like that min max balance point that you really need to teeter on to not throw, but get as much value as you can as possible.
So just playing a little bit more disrespectful.
Exactly, and adding some select words when you kill people and shooting death boxes and teabagging just a little bit when you get into NA.
Yeah, you got to have it. You got to have the disrespect
Yeah.
there. So we talked a lot about the people that you have coached, and we talked about some of the teams you've been on, but I'd like to get a little deeper into your background, how you got into this, how, I mean, you have a very, I would say like a pretty good presence on Twitter. I feel like a lot of people know who you are, and even if they don't know necessarily that you're a coach, you're very vocal on Apex things, and
Number one
just,
complainer.
yeah,
no doubt.
I don't know about that, but definitely like a great follow on Twitter. I'll tell you that much.
I own that brand.
There we go. Okay. All right. Confirmed by him.
as long as it's valued complaints. Like I don't like to do, sometimes here and there I'll do some valueless complaints, more frustration venting. But a lot of what I do on Twitter specifically is I try to raise awareness by complaining, because I truly want change to the game. And, anyone that's been playing this game for the past 2-3 years, I have gotten a lot of stuff changed in this game. We'd be lying if I said I didn't. And I think a lot of the stuff that I've gotten changed has been for the better of the game. And I don't really see myself slowing down anytime soon with that. Like just to push my voice a little bit, get people talking at the very least, right?
Yeah.
What would you say is your top 3 changes
Your magnum
of
opus.
a result of you ranting on Twitter?
I have
your personal favorites.
I need to. You guys might need to help me remember some because I know I have some really good ones, but like on the spot, I just like I'm the type of person where I just don't think about the past. I just kind of push forward on what I want changed in the future. But I definitely have some stuff that I need to try to remember right now that I can't remember on the fly.
Well, they did just change a little bit of the UI of the snow. So there's one.
That is one thing.
That was a huge PvP victory.
So I don't know if I was the person that got this to happen, but the mixtape playlist that they just added, I've been really pushing for like an arcade style playlist in this game for a long, long time. And I even drew up like a concept theory, like MS Paint. I don't know if you guys saw that, where I was like, this is how to fix Apex. You add an arcade mode where people can play a rotational LTM system like TDM, gun run, whatever. And I talked about that for like over a year. They added mixtape recently, which is kind of like that. So that's something that's really cool that they have done recently. Trying to think of like what else. I know there's been some big things, but
I'm pretty sure you were a large part of like the armor switch. Like this was like early on though, but it was like you were discussing like us starting with armors. That was a long time ago. But dude, you were a massive person that was like you got that change. Yeah. I put that down as you. Why people spawn with armors.
I complained about that one for a long time. I've really been actually so like the core concept of what I like to do is I say BR has randomness in it, but I don't think BR should be defined by randomness. I think that we should actually try to limit that randomness by as much as possible. And what I hated most is when you land into a game, you have 100 health, and someone finds a purple armor and they have double your health, like because of RNG. And I understand it's a BR game, but let's reduce that gap a little bit. And it doesn't need to be that drastic. Like, let's have everyone start at 150. They find a purple, sure, they get 50 health more than you. And why not? The same concept that I pushed with the armors, I've actually been trying to push with attachments, which might be a little bit controversial, but I personally think that the whole white attachment category should be eliminated. I think they should be built default into the guns, and I think that floor attachments should just be blue and purple and gold. And I say that because I think that the power gap between just items in this game in general is just a bit too much, in my opinion. and they have teetered with this, I think, in the past with an LTM. I think Locked and Loaded might have been that. I don't
I
remember
think it was like
completely.
all golds or something like that.
Locked and Loaded had something to do with like the white attachments and gun armors. I don't remember, but
Oh, I'm thinking of something else.
yeah. But yeah, that's something I really want, because like you find let's say you find an R9 off the ground and it's naked, and someone finds an R9 and they just find a purple attachment. There's just like such a crazy advantage. Like I'm not a fan of that. But controversial. I'd love to hear people's thoughts about that one.
Yeah, I actually think that would be a really great change because it would clear up floor loot a ton and
Yep,
just make that way better. And yeah, with everything having like a gray, it would definitely like equal everything. Like in the same sense of the way you said, like getting a purple off, like getting a purple armor off rip is still like a massive advantage, but it doesn't need to be as insane as it was when it was double. Because like that's just like way bigger of an impact than it needs to be. And so I think with that, making the shift to the guns, I think that'd definitely be a step in the right direction. Would you say that is that including iron sights? That's a question I would have about it.
No, so sights would be different.
Okay.
My idea with sights, which I'm not sure if I liked it or not, it was just something I'd thought of, was that like 1X, for example, you know how there's 3 different gray ones? There's maybe only 2. There's a red dot, a hollow, and that's it, right? Just
Yeah, I think so.
So my idea was that you find when you're looting, you can find a level 1 sight, and then when you pick it up, you get to choose the one you want. So if you find that level 1 sight on the ground and you have an R9, you want a red dot, boom, you select the red dot on it, and then you have a red dot. That's it. You don't get to switch to the hollow, but you choose when you pick it up. I think that would be pretty cool. And like you were saying, Enoch, the kind of the concept behind this like idea that I thought of was that it cleans up the loot pool a lot. And I remember probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, I broke down the math, and it cleans up the loot pool by like roughly like 15% or something, maybe up to 20%. And it makes it so you're just more likely to just find stuff that's useful in general, instead of finding just like, go through a POI and you find 7 white backpacks and 4 white light mags, like just stuff that you're just like, why am I even bothering looting anymore? Like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of just dead time and useless loot, RNG, stuff like that.
Yeah. So what would your thoughts be on Evo attachments? Because I think we've seen, like, I believe in Control, the better you and the longer you survive and the more like kills you get, then your guns upgrade. And so what are your thoughts on that being implemented into the BR as a function?
So Evo armor was actually not an idea of mine. I think that was from the devs, maybe Reddit or casuals. I'm not really sure who thought of that. That was
one of the best changes that's ever been made in Apex, in my opinion.
So good. It was such a good change. I don't think I was playing the game at the time when they implemented that. I don't remember, but that change is so good, and I love it. And if you think about the core concept of that change, is it reduces the overall RNG of the game, because if you don't find something good, you have the ability of earning it. So with that, core philosophy in mind, I think that being able to upgrade your gun attachments is also very good. But even if it's a bad idea, one thing I've always said is, why doesn't this game test stuff more? Why is there not like a once a month or once a season thing where it's like 3 days? We're gonna have I forget what Overwatch called it, because Overwatch actually tested this a little bit, where it was like it's called experimental playlist or something. Like, it'd be so cool. Like, the devs are like, we really like this Evo attachment idea. Let's throw in an experimental playlist for 3 days and let's see what people think about it. And we'll put it to the test. And they, like, this rank system, which I'm sure we'll probably get into in this podcast, they could have done the same thing for that rank system for 4 days. Like, imagine how much data and feedback they could have got. But then they release this system, I have to say untested, because like, even if they did test it, how many people do they have? Like, let's be real, like maybe 50 if they did test it. Like,
and also the quality of the level of those players.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard all of them are really
bad. For sure.
I've heard they're all terrible. All of them.
Exactly.
Not a single good player amongst a bunch of them.
I would love to see an experimental mode in this game. It would be so good for so many different reasons. And, just maybe just one small thing at a time. You don't need to change 30 things at once, but it'd be super cool, and it's content. Like you'd be playing it. I know you would.
We only said that because Finn is a playtester, so we had to throw him under the bus a little bit. No, yeah, I definitely agree because getting back to just the playtesting in general, it feels like, especially when the game's at its height right now, I feel like it's at the height of its powers. And even though us who play it every day, there's definitely times where we're like, how is this game sitting on top right now, especially in the BR scene? But it's still a very good game. Structurally, it's still a very good game. Now would probably be the best time to use that wide player base to test things out. And like you said, even if it was for a few days, it'd be an incredible idea. And I think a lot of the community would feel the same way. And I think early on they did like a really good job at doing that, but they put it under the guise of like LTMs. Like I remember Evos was an LTM first, and then they put it in there. Mobile respawn beacons were part of an LTM first, then they put it in there. So they used to do this a lot, and it seems like recently they've just completely tailed off from doing it at all.
I'd love to see that. I completely agree. I think you're right. They did disguise it a little bit by calling it LTMs. I would say there were some LTMs that were kind of just, straight up for content, just random. But yeah, I would love to see that come back. I think it's really, really good, and I think they can get a lot of valuable feedback from that.
Yeah, it was always like a fun game. Like whenever a new LTM would come, it would be me and my friends saying, okay, let's try to figure out what they're testing right now. And a lot of times it was pretty easy to figure out, but sometimes it wasn't. But yeah, so getting back, we just went on a crazy tangent, but I wanted to go back to my original question, which was how you got into this whole scene, how you got started, and how you've gotten yourself to the place you are now. And it can be lengthy. Just go through your career and how exactly you got to this point.
You have to hold on. You have to have Overwatch in there. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Okay.
So I guess I could start. I was in college. First, I guess go back a little bit further. In high school, I did dual enrollment. I almost graduated with my 2-year degree. I was just shy, probably about 10 credits, which is like not even one semester. I decided to stay back home just to, just cruise through a whole year. It literally took like one class a semester, like one spring, fall, summer. Got my AA, moved to college. I went to college in Orlando. Did fraternity life for a little bit. I only needed 2 more years on my degree, so I took it a little bit easier. I ended up going for 3 to get that last 2 years. My final year of college, Overwatch released. I had been working, experienced my whole social life, did the fraternity thing, got addicted to Overwatch, got high rank in that game, started streaming on PC, and then my stream took off. So I essentially made like a guide for Junkrat, which is like the character I was known for. And my very first video on YouTube back in 2017-ish, I don't remember. It got 50,000 views. And for a very first video, that's crazy. That's so good. So essentially that like kickstarted my YouTube channel, got my Twitch channel growing. Side note, when I first started streaming, which I don't know if people can do this nowadays, I used to stream on multiple websites at once. So I would stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch all at the same time because there was no affiliate back then. Yeah, long story short, streamed Overwatch for quite a bit. Never went pro in that game because I wasn't really trying to go pro. I was trying to make a living for myself because the same week I graduated college, I got partnered on Twitch and my internship ended at my job. So I talked to my parents. So I was like, can I try this full time? Like my channel's doing pretty good. I'd hate to just end this and go get a normal job. And they said, sure. 7 years later, this is where I'm at. But basically, so I pursued the financial life of streaming, went very well. And eventually I was like, you know what? I've sustained myself. I want to go pro in something. Didn't want to go pro in Overwatch. I really wanted to go pro in a BR game. I knew that wasn't going to be PUBG because that game was scuffed. It was really fun, but it's like the concept, like the core of that game was super scuffed. And then Call of Duty Blackout came out, and that game was so fun. Got addicted to it. Got really good. Started networking with a lot of people. I actually met like Rogue there. I met Huskers there. I met quite a few other names that are now pros in Apex. I was actually going to get signed by C9 in that game. And strangely enough, like right about when I was going to start getting signed, Apex came out. Blackout died immediately. Everyone switched to Apex, and I got signed to C9 as a pro player. And then I competed in Apex for quite a while. The last tournament I played was actually the qualifier for the first ALGS tournament in Texas in 2020. I qualified for LAN, And a week before LAN, it got canceled because of COVID, and I stepped away from pro play. Valorant released, and I was like, you know what? I've never played attack shooter. I really want to play attack shooter, and I had been doing a bunch of sponsor stuff for Riot, which is actually this thing right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. This was sent to me by Riot. It's really fucking cool. But it's like a plaque, and it's like an invite thing to like their playtest and all this stuff. So I went to Valorant. I knew I wasn't going to go pro in Valorant because I never played CSGO. It's attack shooter, really skillful, but I was smart and I wanted to start coaching. So I reached out to some, lower level like T2 teams. I was like, can I sit in on scrims and learn how to coach this game? Blah, blah, blah. It was pretty cool. A couple of those players actually signed to T1 orgs and they're still playing today. I absolutely love coaching and the competitive aspect of Valorant, but streaming Valorant was so boring. Like, the cool thing about Apex is you get to pick your own teammates. Sometimes you can mess around, do different challenges. Like Enoch was talking about how he did like a Pathfinder thing. Valorant, you're locked in 8 hours a day. You're full tryhard for the most part. And I didn't really enjoy that. So then I went back to Apex and I was like, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to stream? Do I want to play again? Or should I coach? And I was like, you know what? I'll coach. So I reached out to I don't remember how it lined up, but I started coaching a South American team called Singularity. I don't know if they were Singularity at the time, but there was Besk and Evzy was on that team at the time. I worked with them for a little bit just to get practice coaching in Apex, and shortly after that, Tech reached out to me. I started coaching his team called Two Brains One Controller. That team lasted 2 weeks. It imploded. Don't really need to get into why that imploded, but some of you might remember. But yeah. So after that, C9 had talked to me. They're like, we really want to re-enter the scene. And I was like, yeah, can I coach? I'll pick up a team. And that's when I approached, I think they were KZN at the time, Noct, Zach, and Naughty.
Yep. They had just won, right?
They had just, so basically I did some research and they had just won ALGS. I was looking at some other teams. I didn't know who Naughty was, never met him. I knew Zach a little bit. I'd played with him in the past, but I knew who Noct was, and I played with him when he first switched to PC, and I had met him through the Top 50 Discord, which I own, and he was insane. I always told myself, I was like, if I'm going to return to pro play, I'm going to play with him because he was on that 2B1C roster with Tech, and him and I were talking about potentially making our own team, and he ended up jumping in with Naughty and Zach, and they won an ALGS. And I was like, that's the team I want. So I brought him in. We got signed. I was already in C9 still. We signed them on to C9. And we were pretty good. That year, it was still COVID. So regionals was, the ALGS championship was like region based. And our accomplishment was we got second and ALGS champs for NA. It was like kind of like the Furia style. We were very aggressive with wall hacks. We got most points, just couldn't clutch out the match point. I don't know if I should keep going, but like that's basically how I got into Apex and esports and all that stuff.
No, yeah, that was
well,
perfect.
if you do want to keep going and kind of get into because like it definitely is looked upon as like probably one of the most controversial moves in Apex history. And so if that's something that you'd want to talk about, I'd love to get your insight and just so people can get
justice
like
for Noct
from your end. How that all went down.
So basically, after we got second to champs, before champs, things were pretty rocky. We weren't sure if we were going to keep our roster, but I had never discussed anything beyond that. Whatever. We went into champs, we did really well, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's go. We're going to do well this upcoming year." And the conversation got brought up of picking up Mac from I think he was playing for Liquid at the time, I think, and the team wanted to replace Noct for him. We kind of did like a voting system. We talked about it. I spoke my mind. I was like, listen, we just got second in champs. This is a bad look. Like, Noct is crazy. Let's just stick as a team. I understand the value of Mac. Like, Mac, insane mechanical player. He had insane accomplishments at the time. He was on TSM, won multiple lands, everything. And it was kind of like the position of making solidifying our roster as like the God team. I don't remember what the term was used at the time, but it was like the best team, dynasty, whatever. I still didn't think that we should do it, but I understood the value behind it. Naughty and Zach really wanted to make that happen, and I was like, well, at the very least, can we do like a trial period? Like, can I approach Noct to talk to him and be like, listen, we'll try Mac out, see if it works. If it works, it is what it is. But like, I want to try to find a way to like not just kick him from the roster. Like, I didn't like that. But when I talked to Noct was like, I don't want to play for a team that doesn't want to play for me. I'm not going to trial like go through that. Like, you know what I mean?
Fair.
That's dumb.
That's fair.
And it's completely respectable. It's the right choice by him. So Noct, we made sure that he didn't get like kicked from C9. He didn't lose his salary or anything like that. He stayed on the org. So we ended up bringing in Mac. Super rocky for the next like whatever months. Just didn't work out. Like, I think I was under the impression that he was going to come in and actually IGL our team. Immediately, like, that just wasn't going to work. So then we had to go through like this phase of like internal tryouts of our own team to figure out like who's going to IGL, and then we had to figure out who's going to Gibby. Like, it was just all over the place for quite a while, and that roster was just kind of a sinking ship for a while. We went into, I think, Sweden LAN. Zach got COVID, and we had to play with Graceful, and that was pretty cool because I guess I forgot part of my history, but the roster I qualified to Texas with was actually, I played with Nasky, and right before that tourney, they implemented like a region lock rule where you had to play in their own region. So we flew Nasky from Europe to NA, and he lived at my apartment with me, and he played the qualifier with me from my apartment in NA, and we qualified to land. So that was fucking sick. But one of the people I trialed as well was Graceful, and I wanted to play with him, but he chose to play with his team. You guys remember what team he was playing with for the longest time?
Forge Gang, right? Was that it? Was he not on the Frog team?
Was he with JMW? And
yeah, I think so.
I don't remember the team he joined, but the team he joined, he ended up teaming with for like 2 years plus.
A long time.
That made me feel a little better that, he chose not to team with me, but at least the team he teamed with, he teamed for so long. But yeah, that was kind of cool. It was like a little reunion for me and him. We did okay at Sweden with the sub. I think we got 10th, I believe. We actually went into the finals with like hella seeding points because we did great through the group stages. We got second in group stages. But yeah, not bad. Then we went to champs, didn't do very well. I think we got 15th or so, and that roster ended up, splitting apart, and we picked up Rocker. Didn't go very well with Rocker, and it was kind of just, it just wasn't happening. And that's when DZ had moved to NA. DZ needed a coach, and I was there for it. So the rest is history.
Were you trying to get out pretty quick, like because you knew it was a sinking ship, or were you more like this was just like a really good opportunity? Does that make sense? Like
I'm trying to think. So I don't know if this is public info or not, but I don't think it matters if I say. But C9 essentially was like, they weren't going to drop us, but they had mentioned that they were really interested in, they're most likely going to be dropping out of the scene. So they gave us a heads up saying like they weren't really interested in participating in Apex anymore, but they weren't going to kick us. So knowing that, as a team, we were going to be seeking like org opportunities with other orgs. So that's when like the opportunity for me to join DZ kind of formed. If I didn't join DZ, I would have stuck with that roster, and I don't know if Rocker would have been on our team or not. Maybe we would have found a different teammate, but I would have gone to another org with that roster. I do have confidence in Zach and Naughty's ability for sure. Rocker doesn't play anymore, but yeah, I don't know what would have happened with that case.
So you mentioned, it could be for various different reasons, but when a team, like when Albert Lilly first joined, you're just like, okay, this isn't going to work. There's reasons why, obviously the IGLing thing you pointed out. And I think with any team that doesn't do well, you can always point at a few tangible things that you can look at and be like, okay, this is the issue. But when you're in that situation as a coach, how quickly do you find out that you're just like, oh, this is not going to work? And it doesn't really matter what the reason is, but from your seat, like how quickly have you seen when you're around a team, you're just like, this is just not it?
It's pretty quick. You do recognize it, but as a coach, it's not your job to admit that or say that to your teammates, because why would I be like, yo, this is like your X, whatever, you're horrible at IGLing. Like, you guys have horrible synergy, like blah, blah, blah. Like, you are dealt cards, you're in a situation, and your job as a coach is to find the best way to handle that situation and try to move forward. And that's just is what it is. Unfortunately, that C9 roster, it was pretty apparent that, like the IGLing synergy between like Mac and Zach, for whatever various reasons, like it just wasn't going to work. So long story short, we ended up pushing forward with Zach being the IGL. We tried to really build Mac into a co-IGL role. And yeah, so that's basically just what we did with that. And we didn't think changing a roster was the right play. We were more on the same page of sticking together and working through it and trying to progress as a team.
I kind of want to circle back around to because like we did just briefly talk about the DZ thing again. And so one thing that we didn't cover was the recent pickup of Zainu. And so could you give us a little bit of a breakdown? Because we just talked about one trade situation, which goes down as probably one of the worst. And now we have one situation which has potential to end up being one of the best, and things are definitely looking positive.
There's things that I don't want to talk about just to not, stir up drama and whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of stuff that just people just from the outside perspective, they just don't know exactly how a lot of things. Like, one, how esports works. Two, the variables that go into play for a lot of different decision making. 3, the story, the truth of like what really like went down and everything. I'm not really interested in kicking up dirt in that aspect. But I would say that, I don't know if I should say dominant, but the first part of this Pro League, we really stepped it up. Like the first split of Pro League when I joined DZ, which we do need to talk about that a little bit first before I get into this. I joined DZ less than a week before we started Pro League, this last split. And they had just come from NA. For people that don't grasp the concept of how difficult that is going into a Pro League, it's really fucking difficult because you don't have a POI. Do you want to spend your 6 play days of Pro League contesting on both maps for good POIs? Or are you going to flex drop and just pick and choose whatever's open for that day? Like I remember we contested TSM for Siphon because DZ had landed Siphon. They won land from Siphon. People don't realize that was the day I first ever heard Zero's voice in a Discord call. That was the first day I joined them. And I was like, well, boys, Pro League's this week. I guess we'll just contest TSM today. Like, it is what it is. Like, we'll see how it goes. Unfortunately, they were way better prepared for us, and they beat us on that contest for those 3 games. And it's like, well, do we bring it back in Pro League with no practice, or do we just flex drop? And we chose the flex drop because Pro League at its core is a qualification for LAN. The whole goal is to win LAN. You don't need first in Pro League. You just need top 10. That's it. You don't we were very content with getting top 10 that split with the situation that we were in. So throughout that split, we landed at many different POIs, probably 6 to 7 different POIs. We played multiple comps, probably 3-4 different comps. It looked really rough at the end. We clutched it out with a second place in finals last split, and we ended up clinching 10th place. It wasn't as close as people make it seem. We were actually 9 points ahead of 11th place, and we were like 2 points away from 5th. So, like, come on. Like, one little day change, we would have been top 5, and people wouldn't have said anything. And even if we got 10th or 11th place of that regional, we were still qualifying to LAN. So that's my 2 cents on that. But anyways,
I remember us. I'm pretty sure, we were talking about that. We didn't know because at first it was just like oh dang, DZ coming over from Australia, entering the NA scene. We obviously know NA has a very strong region, if not the best region. That's very biased of me to say, but then it's like, okay, can DZ hang with NA for a long period of time, not just at a LAN, right? And so I do remember thinking like, oh dang, they might not qualify for pro or for split 1 playoffs. I do remember
it was rough.
Thinking that.
Considering all the factors I talked about, all the variables, it was rough for sure. I was fully confident in my team. We were insane. I knew that. But even looking back at like the lands that Zero had won, they landed he won land from different people. He won land from Shipfall. Like, bro, no one ever would have guessed that you win a land from Shipfall. And then what was the other POI that he won from. I think it was NorthPad or something. I actually don't remember.
I don't remember either. It wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't great. That's for sure.
Yeah, I have
So
no clue.
he was fully what's the word? Open to switching POIs and avoiding contests. He's not a fan of contesting. That was something that going into split 2, my goal after that LAN was I'm instilling confidence and we are just dumping on people. We're going to pick some power POIs. We're going to establish our presence. We're going to really focus on contest practice and everything. And we are going to step it up and really put our foot in the door and, establish a real presence in NA. We're not flex dropping and playing different comps. So we brought it to Mill with Optic. We know how that went. They got fucking rolled. I'll put it that way. We kicked them out of their POI, took that. We love Mill. And we had a choice. Do we want to contest TSM for Siphon? Or do we want to take both Frag East and Frag West? And I'll be honest with you, TSM won LAN. They're auto-called the champs. Are they going to be leaving Siphon? Or are you going to have to contest them throughout the entirety of Pro League at Siphon? They're qualified to champs. TSM does not give a fuck about this upcoming LAN. That's not completely true. They do care. But let's be real. The ultimate end goal is winning champs. And they already made it to champs. They want Siphon for champs for sure. So that's a very, very tough thing to fight for during Pro League when you know they're going to be going there for LAN anyways. So we really wanted to focus on, my opinion, I said, we're taking both Frag East and Frag West. And my teammates looked at me like I'm a crackhead, and they're like, "You're an idiot." Like they just straight up told me no. I was like, "We're doing it. I'm forcing you guys to do that." And what they didn't realize is that this most recent change into Split 2, Crypto can't hit Ring Console anymore. He couldn't hit UAV, and people don't realize Frag East was good because people could play Watson Crypto and hit UAV and go to Godspot. But when you have to manually hit a Ring Console, you can't do that anymore. You can't play Frag East. Frag West has control over the beacon. So if you take control of Frag West and you dominate the Ring Console and deny that Frag East from playing the game, nobody's going to be playing Frag East with triple white armor, no Ring Console information. I'll tell you that one. Until it's Tech steps in the door and cooks up from some Crypto play comp that's really, really good, by the way. He actually played Wraith Crypto Maggie. And essentially he was like, I don't need Ring Console. I'm just going to hit some UAVs and play the game like that. And that allowed him to play from Frag East. So like one of the group days we had him landing there. One of the group days we got both. So yeah, that really helped us throughout Pro League. The first half of Pro League, finally we can get into this. We are doing very well because we had some good POIs. Sharky had stepped up in the aspect that he needed to step up in. We put him on Seer and got him more vocalized. And we won the first Pro League day. Boom, first place, awesome. I think the next 2 days, like next day we did okay. We got like top 5. And the third day we got not so good. We got like 8 or 10 points. Sharky had approached us and was like, well, boys, I don't really want to play anymore. And we're like, okay, I guess we got to find a replacement. And that was the situation we were in. And we were just like, well, we think about all of our options. Rambo, he had just left Sentinels to take a break. And essentially I was like, I could talk to Rambo, we could offer him like a position on the team to play with us until regionals. And, if he wants, we could treat it as a trial period. And if it goes really well, then yeah, obviously we'd love to have him play LAN with us. If not, then, we're just gonna have to figure something out. So Rambo jumped in. We did pretty good at first. And then, I gotta be honest, like we had our doubts. Like I have to be honest. Like we just weren't feeling too confident. I knew it was a situation that it just to put it short, it was not going to work for LAN. Like it was not a position that I wanted to be in for LAN. It was not a position I wanted to force my teammates in for LAN. They didn't want that to happen, and a change just needed to happen. It's just plain and simple. And unfortunately, we also didn't realize that the roster lock was way earlier than it was, and that's a fault of, I guess I'd probably just put that blame on me. It was in the player handbook, but let's be real. LAN got delayed over a month. Who expects roster lock to be so early for a LAN that's 2.5 months away? So I fucked up for sure on that aspect. Because Bo was supposed to play with us until regionals, and once we realized that roster lock deadline was way sooner than we originally thought, we were just like, well, shit. Like you know, we have to like we got to figure something out. Like maybe we could reach out to some people, talk to them, see what's up. Maybe we could trial someone here or there for the next like day or two. So I talked to Bo about it, and I was like, listen, like we didn't realize that the roster lock was this short. Like we need to like, I think, we're pretty secured for land. We were in a really good spot. We didn't really need that many points. We're going to use a couple of our scrim blocks to maybe try some people out. All the variables that went into that whole situation, I really don't want to get into. But essentially, it landed on us with getting Zainu. He was not signed to an org, and we knew that he was the right player for us. He was. I remember if you guys knew or what I had said about Noct, about he was the player that I wanted to team with if I came back to pro player. Zainu was actually, so after obviously Noct's in Optic now, that was never going to happen. Sykes was the next person that I was in the back of my head I wanted to team with. He's in XSET now. Zainu was that next person on my list that I said if I was going to quit coaching, come back to play, I was going to approach Zainu and team with him. People can say I'm bullshitting, whatever, but he was the person. And the reason I knew that is because when he joined, I think he joined season 13. He came from console. He hit me up. He's like, "Yo, I just hit top 50 on PC, and can I get an invite? Whatever." I used to play with him all the time after he joined because I immediately knew. I was like, "Dude, this kid's a fucking demon." Like I could go through my DMs with him. I was DMing him every 2 days. Like, "Yo, you want to rank to a blah blah? You want to rank to a blah blah?" I was like, "I rank to with a prize." But yeah,
Yeah, no,
the
he's
thing
nuts.
is,
He's very, very talented.
And the thing is, like with players like Zainu, is it's very difficult for a player like him who has never played in a tournament, whatever, like ALGS Pro League. They don't just skip hurdles and join TSM. They don't just join, DarkZero. That's just not really how it works. Like players like him, everyone knows they're mechanically insane, but no one knows how they're going to perform under pressure in a real comp environment. They join free agent teams. That's just how it is. They join teams like that, and they try to make a name for themselves, and eventually they if they get offered a better contract. You saw the same thing happen with Verhulst. He was in ESA, but they weren't really in like a strong contract, and I think that was actually coming to an end. TSM needed a sturdy player, and they picked up Verhulst. Obviously, the timing of that is much different, but also our circumstance was a lot fucking different. We had 2 days to find a replacement after the last day playing with Rambo, and what a lot of people also don't realize is that the next day I was traveling to Texas for like 10 hours. I was on 3 different planes, and I actually paid for Wi-Fi on the plane so I could possibly watch scrims, and that didn't even fucking work because the Wi-Fi on the plane wasn't good enough. And we were trying to decide during like that Monday, and what we said was that we were going to be completely open with everyone involved. Like anyone we had talked to, they were going to inform whoever, blah blah blah. And Zainu had already, he talked to Tech, and Tech knew the likelihood of either Zainu or Funk leaving was 100%. He knew because he already knew that I think Zero was going to trial them in Timmy scrims. They played 3 games with Zainu, 3 games with Funk, and unfortunately, like that decision was pretty late into the night, but like one of them was going. Like we had to get Funk or Zainu, and like I just like the only thing I ask, like I really shouldn't like go into like all the details, whatever, blah blah blah. But at some point, like I feel like I have to speak my mind a little bit. But, like, what would other people do in our shoes? You know what I mean? Like it's a tough position. Like it's a really really tough position. Like we knew that like with Rambo, we had already told Rambo before we picked up someone new that we just it wasn't going to happen. Like we had already talked about like releasing the roster, and something that I had thought of was like, if we get Tech or if we get Zainu or whatever, I said I wanted Zainu. If we get Zainu, then we could do a trade. We could just get Rambo plays with Tech. Tech has played with Rambo in the past. They essentially do the same thing. And Rambo told me, he's like, Tech already talked to me about that. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. Okay, perfect. Like, that could line up perfectly. So when it came down to the next day, when we made the decision to lock in with Zainu, I don't know what happened between Rambo and Tech. When I had talked to Rambo, he was locked in to play with him. He was going to do it. And then he tweeted out saying he was going to take a break. And I was just like, that came out of nowhere. Like, why are you not playing with Tech? I don't know if that was Tech's decision or if that was Rambo's decision, but
It feels
You
more
know-
tech than Rambo, in my opinion. But
I
don't
think
know.
I think it was probably Tech's decision. He had also played with Luxford, I believe, in the past on I think Los Dominios.
Yeah, I feel like
So,
well, Tech had previously played with Bo, and he had also played with Lux. So I don't know if that was at the same time, but I do know that Lux had a previous relationship with Lux
Yeah,
had a
he's
previous
played.
relationship with Tech. Yeah.
Yeah, Tech. So the thing is, Tech works a full time job. Yeah, he makes a very very good salary for himself. But unfortunately, a lot of the rosters he has made, they have been free agent rosters where his other two teammates are not making anything. They don't have jobs. They don't, they're not signed. They're not making anything. I think Tech was on. He was on Furia at the time. Um, he got replaced by his Watson, and then he went into Sentinels, and he was coaching that roster, and then they got rid of Lou. I don't know what happened with that. And then Tech ended up playing a whole Pro League split with them. And that roster got released, and that's kind of when he led into this most recent roster with Zainu and Funk, who are very clearly mechanically insane players.
I have to like side with Zainu in the same way, because like what would you do in that situation as well? Like if you get approached by DarkZero, you guys are one in a at the time pretty much guaranteed a spot at LAN, and you know that you're now going to get salaried. It's like, and this kid's insane, right? Like at the time, and still is like the kill leader of the split 2. Like of course
he was. I think him and Zero were like essentially like tied for kills
Yeah.
on the kill leaderboard.
I think right now I'm looking at it. Zainu got first with 82, and then Zero got 78, and he was second. So it's like, I mean, obviously both are very skilled, very strong players, but it's just this goes back to the idea of, okay, yeah, teams are playing on free agent, teams so that they can kind of showcase their ability. Well, Zainu did, right? So I don't know.
The problem is the whole situation is just like, it's just so bad because, I mean, being able to like have rosters switch players in the middle of like Pro League it's questionable for sure. But like, if we're in a position where one of our teammates quits the game, like where are we supposed to approach this talent for our roster that we are trying to win a championship with? Like we're going across the world to play at a multi-million-dollar LAN, going into champs as well. Who are we supposed to pick up? Like people put themselves in our shoes. Are we supposed to grab like a random rank grinder that isn't even playing in Pro League? Are we supposed to reach out to a retired player? I think the stars kind of aligned with Rambo, stepping away from Sentinels, and we reached out to him and we're like, step in for us, help us till regionals at least so we could figure out what we're doing for LAN. That was always the agreement. Like we did not straight up give him a roster spot. We're like, help us to regionals. If it goes really well, we'd love to have you play LAN with us. We'll see how it goes. And just unfortunately, we just foresaw that not really being what we really needed. Like that's just kind of how it is. And what do we do then? You know what I mean? Like what are we supposed to do? Who are we supposed to grab? And like very clearly, Zainu was the player that we needed and we wanted, and he fit really well on our team. And we won regionals with him. Like it's just tough. It's like I have full sympathy for Tech. Like I've teamed with him in the past, and I respect him a lot. But it's a very tough position to be in.
So would you say that
we tried to line up the cards to help him a lot?
So would you say the situation would have looked different if, say, Tech and Zainu and Funk had been signed to an organization, but then it would have played, like you probably would have looked for different opportunities before going to the buyout route?
Yeah, so that's definitely something that is like I can't really go into full details about like some of this stuff. I probably have already said too much than I should have, honestly.
And we appreciate you for it, no doubt.
Yeah.
No, this has been awesome to just sit here and listen.
Yeah. So the thing is, it depends on like the strength of the contract with players, what those players are even being paid really. Like, come on. And also, if the org plans on dropping those players anyways. Like there's just some things that people just aren't aware of when it comes down to like little details like that.
Yeah, and I think we actually talked about it last week before we had any of the other info. I think adding to your point, it makes it so much worse on social media when little clips are being floated around and there's not full context and you can't get the full story really. Because like the first kind of like clip was of Rambo talking about it on Hal's stream, and it was just, I don't know, like a 30-second clip, and you don't get the full story there. So social
Yeah,
media makes it
I was
way worse.
so yeah when Rambo first joined and there was like the drama behind what I barked at Fallout about this was he tried to push the narrative that um I think that I can't remember what happened, but I think he pushed the narrative that we had approached Rambo to get him to leave Sentinels and join us and blah 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 blah. I was like, that's just not what happened. I don't know why you're even talking about this. And yeah, like there's just so much stuff that just like shouldn't, so much drama behind like clips here and there, and like, you know, with Rambo going on Hal's podcast because people are just throwing accusations at him and making up lies about him, and he's just kind of had enough to where he like got really frustrated, and then Zero had to go into that call and like clear things up, and it was just like this got messier than it needed to be honest.
Yeah, and we did bring up the other fact too that when we were talking about it, it's like at the end of the day, when you're playing any sport, if you watch any sport, a lot of times the worst team in the world is like the coach is like, "Hey guys, we suck." But you can play for your next contract. Like you can play yourself into a position to where you are financially successful on a better team and a better roster doing whatever. And that's no slight to Tech at all, because honestly, he's kind of done like incredible things getting a lot of these guys into better situations, which sucks for him getting to go to land because they end up going somewhere else. But it's like if you're playing and all of a sudden it's right in front of you, your entire goal, you've been grinding forever to get like signed somewhere with to somebody who has a name so that you can play this professionally with all the hours you've grinded in, like how do you not take that? And so that's kind of our point about it last week, and that was before learning all this extra information, all the new stuff behind the scenes. So I do respect, because it seemed like you guys were getting shit on for most of the week on Twitter, and I thought it was really good that you guys kind of took a step back, stayed away from it as much as you could. Probably wasn't easy. The social media aspect, especially on an esports game, is wild. Like esports is all social media. It seems like at this point. So I really applaud
Yeah,
you for that. And you guys had to make a decision, and you came to one.
it's yeah, the thing is like when Sharky left, he left right in the middle of the Pro League split. And we, you know, we try to find like Rambo, he seemed like the right choice because he wasn't on a team and we didn't have to worry about, you know, splitting up another roster. And like realistically, if you're going to get someone on your team, you kind of have to get someone from that's in Pro League because that's where the talent is. Like that's where like the team that you're trying to build long term, that's where the players are. And if we like out of any of this, I feel like there probably should be in the future a change to where they have something in place for players moving from one team in Pro League to another team in Pro League, potentially something like that. I don't know if they plan on keeping that, removing that, whatever. Maybe if someone does get taken from another team, they get like an extension on their roster change. That could be something that they could look into. But I think just overall, it's just a really incredibly shitty situation. And we're not like here to dismember, disband, like destroy teams. But at the same time, like we have a goal to win a championship and we have to do what's best for us. And unfortunately, if we approach a player and it betters their life and they're happy to have that opportunity and it's also good for us, it's just kind of how it goes. Like I have to, like I don't know how else to say it. You know what I mean? Like it just sucks. It's just a shitty situation.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would envy being in this position. And it's easy for people from afar to kind of look at it and be like, well, I wouldn't have done that. Well, yeah, because you're not in that spot. So, but we really do appreciate you going into it and giving people a lot more of a background on this story, because it was a big story, and I don't think everybody had the full scope. And very thank you. very much for all that information. I'm sure you don't want to be talking about it anymore. I'm sure you want to move on. And you kind of ended it right there, talking about something that Apex could change in order to help the Pro League. Moving off of that, but staying on the same vein of some changes, today is a brand new season. Season 17 just dropped. We have a brand new rank system, and I'm sure you've got some opinions on it. I already looked at the tweets a little bit. For anybody who's not on Twitter and who hasn't seen your opinion, what do you think about this rank system so far, and do you think it'll pan out?
So I was in Texas at the DZ house for ALGS. I actually just flew back home today, so I have not got to play it yet. But I have been watching, and I've been looking at the feedback of other players. And obviously, I've been someone that's very vocal about the rank system for a long time now, because I feel like this game just can't get a grip on the rank system. I don't know what is going on, but essentially, on paper, it seemed okay. I saw a lot of people talking about before it released that there wasn't like the cost of entry shouldn't be the same for all ranks. Um, but after seeing it in practice and like being able to give some real thoughts on it, like seeing it played, is that the problem with this rank system is, yes, it's placement based, which is good. It's what we've been asking for. But the problem is the cost or the risk of loss for RP, LP, whatever you want to call it, is not high enough. People don't care. They could literally hot drop in a game in ranked, no matter what rank you are, pred, bronze, gold, whatever, and die in 20th, and they don't care. It does not matter, because you lose, what, 35 points or something right now? And if you win a game, you win 10x that. Like, even if you get like top 8, you're getting like 100 points or something like that. So right now, since people don't care, the lobby's dying really fast, because people are just, dying at the beginning, hot dropping, running around doing whatever. And then the people who do want to gain RP, they could literally just go AFK. Like, I could fly into, I bet you during this interview, I could have gained 500 RP by just on the side of my monitor, clicking on randomly on a map and hiding in a tree. And it's like, you think about that, and it's like, why is the system like that? The system needs to be punishing to a point where if you play bad for 4 hours, or if you don't play the game at all for 4 hours, like you're just sitting AFK, that you are going to be negative RP and you're going to be losing ranks. But unfortunately, right now, that's just not the case, because you could lose for 2 hours straight and win one game and you're positive on the day. And it's like, what kind of system is that? All that means is whoever plays the most is going to be the highest rank, and lower ranks are going to be inflated to the high ranks, and the game's just going to play out horribly. It's not going to be competitive. There's not going to be any thought process behind, we got to get Godspot because there's going to be 12 teams alive in endgame, blah, 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 blah. It's just really, really bad in practice, in my opinion.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I want to get back into coaching a little bit, and then we'll let you go. We've taken plenty of your time, but you've been awesome, and I really appreciate it. I wanted to get back into the coaching aspect, and what do you think your best attribute is? Because I think there's a lot of different types of coaches out there, and not every team has a coach, to be honest with you. I think it's something that's starting to change, and we're starting to see more guys get signed to coach. As far as you, though, what is that attribute that you look at and you say, this is what makes me strong in my position?
So obviously I played pro before. I qualified for LAN myself, so that's like a huge thing that maybe I have over other coaches. Another thing is I try to find I don't try to force myself on my team and force them to do things unless I have to. Like, for example, contesting certain POIs, like it's just something that just needs to happen. I try to be more so of a fourth member on the team, on an outside perspective, and try to find the balance between all of my players together to bring the most value. I don't like the idea of me being an assertive coach of telling them my players what to do, because clearly, like joining DarkZero, I don't need to do that. Like they've won LAN without me twice, and they're very, very insane players. But that doesn't mean that I don't provide value for the roster and I don't provide value for the team in many, many different ways. But it's just not what my team needs. Maybe if I were to leave this team and join a challenger circuit team, then hell yeah, I'll be telling those players what to do. I'll show them like what to do, right? But I think that me being more so a part of the team instead of being controlling of the team is something that I do very well for me personally, and realizing that aspect instead of trying to dominate the team or whatever.
So like more of like a player's coach essentially is less of a kind of like I think a lot of people think of traditional coaching as kind of like a bench boss, like very demanding. You're more of just, I'm going to try to fit in the best way that I can, like a fourth man, like you said.
Yeah. And I think that it's a few coaches to name, like Hodsick. I think he is very similar to this aspect on his roster. I don't think he's barking orders and forcing his teams to do things on a whim constantly. I think they work together more rather than under him. And also Raven, outside of him first joining TSM and really getting some real structure behind that team, I think Raven has become more of a fourth voice along with his team rather than straight up telling his team what to do. So I think that right now in Apex, I think that's the best way to do things, especially considering the fact that I can't talk to them while they're playing anyways. Maybe if I could talk to them while they're playing, then I could be more assertive and demanding about what I want done. But at the end of the day, when they are in game alive, they are the ones making the decision on all these variables that come into play. So really all I can do is just set us up on a macro level, set us up on the ideologies or philosophies that when certain things happen, we need to do this type of thing, because it's impossible to cover a million scenarios. I can cover important ones here and there, but things will happen in game that it's impossible for me to plan for that. All I can do is train their minds to make the right decision in the moment that they have. And yeah, I think that's just basically how it is.
I've always wondered what other coaches think about this. I brought it up one time on the show and I kind of got flamed for it. Do you think it would ever be, well, okay, I don't know how to ask this, but do you think,
no,
yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it. I got to ask it. Do you think one day you could see the coaches being able to be in game with the guys? Like, I guess, like you said, it's hard to be a bench boss when you literally can't be patched into them at all times. If you could be in the room with them and they could still hear you throughout the whole thing, do you think that would ever be possible, or would you want that to be possible? Not want it to be possible?
It already happened. I got that rule changed.
Oh yeah.
So I can't remember on C9.
I remember
it was
early.
That
for
was
some
early.
reason, yeah, I don't remember. Like for some reason, at like the start of a Pro League split or whatever, they like changed the rule in the player handbook to where it allowed coaches to talk mid game, and everyone thought it was fucking stupid. I said it was stupid, and I was like, well, if it's a rule, I guess I have to do it. And when I first started doing it in like small tournaments, whatever it was, I remember like scrims, whatever. I realized very shortly, I was like, wow, this is actually like an acquired skill. Like you really have to understand like what type of coaching style you want with your players, because you're able to talk to them constantly, right? You need to understand like when you should chime in, what you should talk about, stuff like that. So it was something that I had to practice, because if it was going to be a thing in Pro League, I wasn't going to go into Pro League blind and have other teams doing it. Like what the fuck? I have to practice and get good at it, right? Regardless, I thought it was dumb. I spoke my opinion on it. I said it's dumb. They should change the rule, but I'm going to do it anyways because it's in the rules. Like you have to. Like, why would I give up a straight up advantage when other teams will do it too? Yeah, that's I personally don't really necessarily like it. It's interesting though. I think the concept of IGLs would be diminished heavily if you had your coach in the back end just telling 3 controller players what to do. I think there's a lot more interesting scenarios, and the game is more interesting to watch when you have 3 voices and one is more of a controlling IGL than having a coach in the back end telling things and stuff like that. Personally,
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever me and Wyatt, we had this discussion. It's so funny that
I
you said that.
you, bro.
Yeah, you had to ask. I get it. I understand. We said that, like, I said that would probably only really work on a LAN scenario, unless like online scenario where you could be like, hey, this team's right here. You can't, like, don't go here, don't go here, right?
I was mostly
LAN,
speaking just for LAN, not for the online tournaments, just for LAN. I thought it would be interesting to have that aspect in the broadcast, I guess. My mind always goes to that first. Like I'm a sports fan too, so I just picture like see the NFL coach with the headset walking back and forth.
Yeah.
I wanted to see like Raven walking back and forth,
Unfortunately, we'd have to be able to stand to be able to do that. That's the next on my list to try to get ALGS to allow us to do. So, like, for some reason, Respawn, ALGS, whoever it is, I don't know. They just hate coaches. We just don't exist. We get 0% of the prize pool. It took me, I just got paid out like 2 weeks ago for a tournament that happened 2 years ago, because the payout coaches don't exist in the eyes of EA and Respawn. Like the payout goes to the players, and then you have to like find these like arrangements and contracts and or deals where it goes to the org, then back to the players, and the org, and then the coach, whatever. It's stupid. But essentially, we know how the coaching chair thing worked. Like I had to fight for a normal chair, not a plastic $5 Walmart chair at the last two lands. And we finally got a chair with a cushion. And then thankfully last land we actually got the same chair that the players use, so that was cool. But honestly, we don't even need chairs. I want the ability of being able to stand up and walk around because we're still isolated to our area. I can't see other POVs. I can't hear anything. But the problem is with the chairs is they have literally tape on the ground in a square, and you can't leave that square. So when I'm at LAN, I have a player in front of me with his back to me. I can't see his monitor. And then I have a player to the right and a player to the left, but I have no game sound. So when they're playing, I'm sitting there. I can hear their comms, and I can see one player's POV, half of it because his shoulder's covering the minimap. And then I can see the other player's POV, half of it because his shoulder's covering his gun loadout. And I can't even see the person in the middle because if I move to the right, they yell at me. And I'm just like how? What am I supposed to do? Like, yeah, I could talk to my teammates after they die, which is another rule I got changed, by the way. We used to not be able to talk to our team until the game ended. So imagine fighting a team off drop and your team dies in 20th, and you sit there for 30 minutes listening to your team yell at each other while I just can't even say a word. Oh my God, I was about to lose my mind at Sweden. I think that was when that rule existed. But yeah, like personally, if I had the setup, I would get my own PC that would have player POVs of all of my players. I can alternate between them, get game sound and hear comms. That would be amazing. But if they can't find the logistics of doing that, at least allow me to stand and like hear game sound or something. Like, I don't know.
Okay, so my dream could still kind of be alive. You could still be walking around. If we have to compromise on this, I'll take away my ability for you to say anything mid-game, but I would love for them to give you the ability to walk around with a clipboard, maybe a headset, and just kind of peek over the shoulder.
Essentially,
okay,
we can't even talk about that scenario when I can't even like I'm missing so many other things at LAN. So it's like we have to get to the point where I can even realistically get the variables that I need to even be able to talk in game.
Yeah.
Like imagine me trying to make calls when I don't even have game sound. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. And once again,
it's crazy.
Before I get roasted by everybody in Discord and on Twitter, I meant only at LAN. I didn't mean at home. Only at LAN.
Yeah.
Did I want the coaches to talk?
It's interesting because like if it were to happen, it would be at LAN, right? But then we'd be playing all Pro League with me having a different rule set. It would be strange.
Definitely.
It'd be strange for sure.
No, I could see that. I've just always wanted it. Just traditional sports fan stuff. Speaking more on LAN, what's so different about it? And I want to get this from a perspective of somebody who's been there as a player. Well, you didn't get to go, unfortunately, as a player, but as a coach, you get the environment.
I did play at the TwitchCon LAN.
Okay.
I secured a bag there.
There you go.
That was nice.
There you go. What's different about a LAN that people don't really understand sitting at home watching it from their computer chair?
So one thing from a coaching aspect is LAN is usually a 3-day thing. We're back to back like games events. Like we wake up at like 8 a.m. and we have all these things like check in, we have to eat breakfast and then do photo shoots for their media profile, whatever. Then we're playing and then we're eating and then we're playing again, whatever. We have like no preparation, rarely any time at all to go from day to day to day. So that's one thing is you have a lot less preparation than you do online, because online you usually have like weeks, sometimes 2 weeks before your play day, and that's a huge difference. Also at LAN, you're on a different setup, different heights, like things that people don't realize might matter is playing on a different setup. Like your chair might be a different height, your mouse pad might be smaller. Like if you guys can see my mouse pad, like my mouse pad is huge. Like this thing it's huge, right? At LAN, you get tiny little square, right? So if you're an online warrior playing on low sense, you might want to get that figured out, because at LAN, you're not going to be able to manage that one. So like mechanical variables in that aspect, the pressure of, some people might not like playing in front of a crowd. There's also that. And another huge thing is you're playing against teams that are from a completely different region. Like the game doesn't play out how it plays when you're online, because you're playing against players you've known for literally years. When you go to LAN, you'll end up playing against a team you've never even seen in game before, and they're doing like crazy wall bounces and shit, and you're just like, who the fuck are these guys? Like, so it's a whole different ballgame for sure.
So you mentioned at the beginning that you were getting back from a 2-week boot camp that you guys were doing up into regionals. And so can you give us a little bit of insight on how important that is to working towards your success and what all takes place into preparing during those 2 weeks of you guys all being together to help get you guys into the right mindset to show up on game day and walk away with the W?
Yeah, so DZ, when they picked up the roster, obviously they moved him from Australia to NA. They live in a team house together. When they signed me, they really wanted me to move there and live with them as well. Unfortunately, I just bought a house, so I was like, this is just not going to work. But I'm open to flying out during Pro League and staying there. And they actually wanted me to go for the entirety of Pro League for like what 2 months or something like that. I don't remember what all Pro League is. And we kind of worked out where I've been going at like the beginning and then the end. So like I'll do like the first 2 play days. So I'll stay for like 10, 12, 14 days, whatever it is. And then I'll be there for the last play day and finals. So that's kind of what we've been doing. And the boot camp it's really cool because like we're all in the same house. We're all on the same schedule. We're, if I want to see them in person, we can do VOD review in person, in the living room. And we're eating together. Like, we eat lunch, dinner, everything together. We do team dinners. Like the last day I was there, we went out to Applebee's, got some food and drinks together. Also the org is there, like our managers are there. So it's a really healthy environment for sure. And then when it comes to just communication and just like setting up basic things, like it's so much easier to do when you're literally in the same house. Because I could just knock on Jen's door if he's sleeping and be like, yo, we're doing VOD review in 20 minutes or something like that. Whereas like if he's sleeping when I'm in Florida, how the hell am I supposed to wake him up or like set things up? It's definitely much better to be in person as well. So, and that builds, I think it builds character on a team because like I said many times already, is that our end goal is to win LAN, and that's all in person. Like I'm going to be there with them. It would be kind of weird if I was coaching the team and I literally never saw them until LAN for 3 days. Like they're playing and they see a guy behind them that they don't even like recognize his real face because I just have a Discord picture most of the time. So I think it instills confidence in a roster when you get to know them personally.
Yeah, and you mentioned it'd be a little bit weird to see somebody for the first time if you hadn't seen them in a while. For those of you not watching on the YouTube right now, PVPX has a crazy beard. It's sick. It's awesome. It's great looking. It would be unfair of us to ask Rambo about his hair when he hopped on here and then not ask about the facial hair that we've seen. It's probably the best beard we've had on the show. Actually, I will throw you that. You have already won the award for best beard on the Apex podcast. So there
Let's
you
go.
go. Whatever that means to you.
Until Rogue gets on you.
Yeah, exactly. While I'm asking this question while Finn gets the double tap going, but how much work goes into maintaining that mane that is on your face?
You might be shocked, but I literally do nothing.
Nothing at all.
So when I first started dating my girlfriend, I didn't really have a beard. It was kind of just like, regular, and then I would just shave it. And she likes beards, so I was like, she likes beards. I'm lazy and I hate shaving. So I just let it grow and just what it turned into. And then honestly, I'll go like 10 months without shaving. And then I'll just get a little annoyed. So then I'll just shave it all off and it'll just go straight back in like a few months. Like I don't use beard oil. I just, a little shampoo, conditioner when I take a shower, and that's it.
That's crazy because it's like perfectly shaped. Like mine, if you look, there's
To be
more
fair,
here than here. It's just all over the place.
Yeah. To be fair, when I get a haircut, I do have them like line it up a little bit.
Okay, I was gonna say that's like really
yeah.
perfect. Like it's like two lines.
Yeah.
Up. There we go.
But usually the bottom, I just let it like do its thing.
Perfect. Beautiful. Finn, you got that double tap?
Yeah, I'm ready for double tap.
I had to improvise on the spot for that one.
No, that was good. It was great. So double tap, which is I just tell you I'll tell you a sentence, a phrase, and then you respond with a 1-word answer. And it's usually rapid fire. Call it the double tap. All right. Number 1, Apex Twitter beef.
Impressions.
Number 2, car SMG.
R99.
Number 3, ballistic.
cool.
I'll take it. Number 4, DarkZero's biggest strength.
Passion.
And number 5, Apex Legends' worst aspect.
The code.
Interesting. I'll
There
take
we go. We'll take it. We'll take it. E, you got your final one?
So yeah, along with that, I have like the same question that I ask everybody that comes on, because everybody who we have come on, they're performing in the top 1% in the field that they're operating in, and you are certainly the case for that, as you have to be on the absolute short list of people who would consider top Apex Legends coaches in the world. And so what is something that you could give to somebody that has helped you get to where you're at, that somebody could apply to basically any field that they're passionate about, to help get them into that top 1%?
Very easy answer. Literally just reach out to someone that you know you can learn from and maybe offer some benefit to them as well. And that's how it starts. It's all about networking. It's literally all it is. Like, if you have the passion to succeed and you have a goal that you want to acquire, you need to network and work with someone else to help accelerate that process. And I think that you can apply that to literally anything. Like, let's say you want to become like a really good basketball player. It's much better to reach out to, maybe some coach at a local YMCA than it is to just do it all by yourself. And something, you could even reach out to like a middle school basketball team and be like, can I jump in and help coach this team? And you'd be surprised on what you can learn from a scenario that you think that you would have no benefit to yourself. That's how I started coaching. So I think that is a proof within itself.
Who is the person you reached out to?
It was the
Singularity thing?
So I first did it in Valorant. I reached out to some Valorant players.
Oh, that's right.
But when I came to Apex, I kind of more so made like an open-ended tweet saying like, who wants team coaching? I'll sit in on scrims. And it was Singularity that reached out to me. It was Evzy. She was the first one. Then Tech was the second one from NA. And then, I kind of kickstarted everything for me.
Awesome. Well, that's great advice to live by, and I think anybody could definitely take some notes from something like that. And I hate to say it, but you were so close to being our longest interview. You're about 6 minutes off. You're so close. But PVPX, we really appreciate you hopping on. It's been a pleasure, and we really appreciate your candidness and openness on a lot of the situations that went down, along with just your opinions on the game. And I think you've been kind of one of those figures for a long time now that people can look at and be like, these opinions, I may not agree with all of them, but they matter, and they are very valued and important to the rest of the community. So we wish you the best of luck, you and DarkZero, heading into LAN, and we really appreciate your time and hopping on with us, man. So hopefully next time we talk to you, you'll have that trophy.
I appreciate you guys for holding it down in the this aspect of the Apex community. Obviously, it's amazing content. You guys are doing a really good job. And I think everyone that is listening right now can agree with me.
Thank you, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the gas,
thank
bro.
You, bro.
Yo, thank you.
Got
bro.
you.
We appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, that was PVPX. Big shout out to the DarkZero head coach for hopping on the show. Man knows how to break down a situation. Man knows how to break down just about everything. We really appreciate his time, and for him hopping on. Wasn't quite the longest interview, but he was pretty damn close. Shout out to PVPX. Okay, boys, season 17 dropped today, which is kind of a problem, and it's also kind of an awesome thing. The awesome thing is it's a new season. We get new stuff. It's really cool. The bad thing is we record on this day, and it's very hard to get a full scope of how we feel about certain things when we don't get to fully play it through. So we are not going to go through and break down everything quite yet. We're going to wait. We'll probably wait until next week to kind of give our thoughts on everything. But we just wanted to highlight that for everybody because I jumped. Enoch, I don't know how much you played. I literally I jumped into the firing range and I went to the 1v1 pit to see how big it was. And like, that was it. I don't know about you.
I got off at like 12:45 after not hitting Masters in one stream on Pathfinder, and then I did not even think about Apex. And so I've not touched the new season in the slightest. But I'm looking forward to giving a breakdown next week. Am I right?
You are right. You are right.
I played a little bit.
Okay.
I've also been playing for a while on this, so
yeah, you kind of like forged it a little.
yeah, nice, dude, sick.
Yeah. So if you
Remember when
guys
that-
have
you
any
remember whenever
complaints,
that
send
was
them
a
all to Finn.
character? You remember when that was a character?
Yeah, for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. All right, good talk. But yeah, we'll see. We'll have a better breakdown and a better grasp on everything whenever it comes to the new season. And I think everybody will be able to give a more formulated and better opinion so that we're not just spitballing saying random stuff and it just being of no substance to the listener.
Yeah.
So we're gonna instead we will table that, considering we have plenty of time to be able to do that as well too. So
Not to mention that, yeah, we have so much time before land, so we'll have plenty of time to break all that down. So what we're going to do instead is just head straight into the heart-to-heart, because the interview with PvP was a little on the longer side, as well as our breakdown. So let's get into the heart-to-heart. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is heart-to-heart time. Heart-to-heart time. Who wants to go first? Oh, Finn finally puts the hand up.
listen,
There's no
I think I
awkward
have
pause
to go
this
first.
time.
I
All
feel
right.
like I have to go first.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so it didn't happen.
No.
Well, let me explain why why,
Well, first explain
It
that
was-
it was a date. Yeah.
Okay, so originally planning on going on a date with a girl on Saturday, and we didn't really talk a ton throughout the week. And I'm not trying to like go too into depth with everything, but essentially it just didn't seem like there was a ton of interest on her side, which is A-okay. And so I called her and asked if she still wanted to go, and she was like, she said she had already said yes, but I was like, if you're not interested, I don't want to waste your time or my own. So it's okay. We go next, and yeah, that's pretty much it, or all that I really want to get into. But it was a respectable adult, dating scenario. So it was it was good. Everything, like, we all grow, we all learn. That's it. So that's my heart to heart this week.
That's okay. Listen, we're fresh in the game. This is the first quarter, okay? We're not even at halftime yet, all right? We're taking it slow. First quarter. We're all good. We're all good. Okay, E, your heart to heart this week.
I guess the biggest thing that I've been focusing on is like when I like got to like the level that I was like had with streaming, was a lot of doing the things that like nobody else wanted to do, whether it be like pulling crazy hours, waking up super early, and just like finding ways that I can do more. And even if it's like almost like outside looking in, be like, oh, that guy's like psychotic. Like when I did the number one pred grind, I like did the number one grind. I like slept for 4 hours or 6 hours, and then played for like another like 18, so that way I could take advantage of like being number one pred. And I played all the way up until I got off. When I got off after playing for 18 hours, I hopped in a car and I drove 6 hours because I had a dentist appointment like 6 hours away, because I was at a family wedding that weekend on that Saturday night. And like that's just like a level of just like psychotic like drive and just willing to put in the work that I want to start getting back to. Not necessarily like doing that same situation, right? But just like finding ways where I can just do more. Think about like, how can I like just push past a little bit further? Because like when I got to the 24-hour mark on my 24-hour, I was just like, well, I didn't hit it, and I'm probably not going to hit it. I could just call it and go to bed. I'm a little bit tired. And then I was like, you know what? Like, let me just push all the way until the ranked season stops and just see what happens. and like things went crazy. Like, yeah, I didn't get it, but like subs went crazy, people went crazy. Just I had like around like 1,300 bodies in stream just hanging out vibing, and like obviously like I got raided a ton, and there's like nobody on because it's like the morning before the new patch, but like that's all like results that like I want to be seeing, and I'm only gonna like see them if I'm willing to do the things that nobody else is. And so with whatever, I just like the main thing for me is like whatever you're chasing after and you're like working towards, just find a way to like give yourself that edge and just do more, and you will get way closer to your goals faster. The more you put in that effort, and like doing more doesn't necessarily have to be like putting out more like content necessarily, as in like putting effort as a whole into like the level of content that you're putting out. And so, and it doesn't even have to be content, like just anything with life, just be crazy and do more.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. Mine kind of plays off that too. Just feeling like things aren't going exactly how you wanted, and then something kind of comes along and puts into perspective how far you've actually come. And just because you aren't, the number one person in the world doesn't mean you haven't worked hard. This week, we had something on Banner where one of the hosts, he was trying to get his master's degree, and he had been studying for this test he was supposed to be studying for this test for like 3 months, and he basically slacked off till about like the final 2-week mark. And then he crammed it all in, and it was to get his master's degree, and we were all excited for him. And that whole day, we had been talking about it for like 2 weeks on the show. And that whole day, I have never seen so much fan interaction in my life, which, by the way, is just awesome in general, because they care about you enough to check in and be like, did he pass? Did he pass? Did he pass? Everybody knew that day, that Friday, if he was going to pass or not. And then we got the confirmation that he passed. And then I made like a little post. I posted that thing, dude. Within 5 minutes, we had 35 comments of people being like, let's go, like all excited for our guy. And it puts into perspective how far you've come. And I may not have 135 people in there congratulating my friend on his accomplishment, but the 35 there who have stuck with us since the beginning are awesome. And it's just like you have to take into account like the not always the number, but the reason you have a number in the first place. Like, they are here congratulating somebody they've never met, somebody they've never talked to, and they just want him to be successful. And we would have never had that if we didn't put in the work in the beginning. And it was just really fun to watch. And it puts into perspective like you being there, and even us here being there for somebody every single week. They know we're going to be here every week we've been here, other than holidays. It puts into perspective that, you become a part of somebody's life to where they start to kind of want to make sure that you're okay, and make sure that you guys are doing good just as much as we hope everybody out there is doing good. And it's just a really cool interaction that you have with the people who decide to tune into your content. And it makes you feel really good to know that you're able to give that kind of impact, because as humans, sometimes you forget that you do have, a major impact on people out there. So very cool scenario for all of us there and all of us here. And I'm just very thankful for everybody out there who tunes in and checks in on the boys and does all that. I have a listener from this show that every single hockey game he's like DMing me. He's a big Leafs fan, and he's going through it right now. But I enjoy interactions like that, and I enjoy that type of thing because it puts into perspective of like how cool this entire situation is, and I'm very appreciative of it. And yeah, it's awesome, man. It's really awesome.
It is tight to know that like there's people, dude. It's so wild to think that there are people. I still can't get over it. There's people that literally are like genuinely excited for Thursday mornings,
Yeah.
or Thursday afternoons, whatever time zone it is. Like, they're stoked because they get to listen to like us talk about a video game.
Yep.
That we all play. Like, I just think that's awesome. It's really crazy. I mean, it's a very cool opportunity, and I'm very thankful for it.
But it goes more than that, you know? Like I have people DMing me Love is Blind takes. I have people, like I said, the hockey stuff.
We need to do that, by the way. That's put that in the off season list. Like,
yes,
we got to get Enoch to like binge
said
watch
he'd
it
watch.
as well. So
watch.
we need to get.
I can binge watch. I can take some time.
I watched it in a full evening. I think you can do it too. Granted, I've gone through multiple seasons, so I knew which parts like I could just cut out. Like, I'm a veteran at watching it. So
Finn is an actual vet. I kind of just suffer through all of it, but Finn is a legit vet. If you want the right way to watch it, do it the way Finn does it. Because first of all, the entire wedding dress episode is useless. I'm sorry,
it's just skip it. You can
skip that entire episode. But yeah, so getting back to the main point, it is so awesome. And yes, they tune in to listen to us talk about a video game, but I think more importantly, I think they tune in to listen to us, and they want to see how we're doing, and how we're doing, and you know what's going on. So very thankful for all of you guys out there. It's been a pleasure, and we're coming up on some milestones here. We're getting damn close to episode 50, so I can't wait to celebrate that with all the listeners out there. But without further ado, ladies and gents, let's send you on the rest of your week. It's been great. Next week, we're going to break down season 17 and go through some of our thoughts on all of the brand new changes. Don't forget to click the link down below where you can go ahead and follow along to all of our social medias and all the different things that we have going on for ourselves. We'll catch you guys next week for another episode of the Apex the Podcast. See you.